Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Michelle Suarez, and I'm the Career Services Officer here at the Career Development Center. So this year, I know it's our annual Career Day looks a bit different than when it was before, as we transition to a more virtual setting, mainly to help our community flatten the curve. So props to everyone for making this transition seamless, and we hope that we were able to prepare you for this year's event. We are very much excited to host the Virtual Career Day. But before we get started, I would just like to do a quick housekeeping and also share with you the agenda for today's event. So as we are using MS Teams Live today for attendees, you do not have to worry about turning off your videos or muting yourself, as it will be done so automatically. But for any questions or comments, and we highly encourage, as we have some amazing speakers today, if you just want to say thank you, feel free to use the Q&A box that is located, I believe, at the top right of your screen. You'll see that question mark icon there. Feel free to send in any questions or comments, and we'll do our best to answer them or share them with our speakers for today's event. As for the agenda for today, we again have amazing speakers lined up to open the event and share with you some of their experiences, some alumni success stories, and also some insights on what the future of work would look like. And so make sure to stay for the full hour before we officially open the chats for the virtual career day at 12 p.m. today. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our wonderful leader, our director of the Career Development Center, Julia Denker, to deliver the opening remarks for today. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. I am Julia Denker. I am the director of the Career Development Center at KPU, and I'm so delighted to welcome you to this exciting day. Before launching into our program, it is my honor to acknowledge that at KPU, we work, live, and study in a region south of the Fraser River, which overlaps with the unceded, traditional, and ancestral lands of the Kwantlen, Katsi, Semiahmoo, Swasin, Kikite, and Coquitlam peoples. Today is a special day. At KPU, our motto is where thought meets action. And so, on this day, we are thrilled to help you, KPU students, connect with real-world employers to discover industries and opportunities to transform your education into career action. Industry and community partners, we thank you for your unwavering interest and support in hiring exceptional career-ready students. A KPU education goes beyond books. As a polytechnic university, we focus on hands-on skills and delivery of expansive experiential learning opportunities, in addition to traditional academics. A KPU student emerges well-equipped to enter the workforce. Students, the Career Development Center offers an array of supportive services to take your career readiness to the next level. To action. Through career advising, workshops, and job finding resources, we can help you find focus and guide you along your career path, even after graduation. Employers and community partners, hiring a KPU student is an investment in your organization's growth, in your community, and in the personal and professional growth and success of a KPU student. KPU students and graduates are industry and technology savvy and eager to demonstrate their skills in your business. The pandemic has changed our work, our lives, in countless ways across all industries. 1 year ago, as KPU pivoted quickly and hard to an online academic and student services stage, the Career Development Center also opened up its virtual world of career advising, employer panels, information sessions, career fairs like today, and more, and discovered a new and effective way of connecting students with employers and community partners. Our team has worked tirelessly to help make this day, Career Day, a success for all of you. From our cozy living rooms, bedrooms, and basements to yours, we hope you find this event brings you excitement, inspiration, and opportunity. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The future depends on what you do today." And today, wonders will happen. So I thank you for coming and enjoy, everyone. And without further ado, I will now pass the mic over to Michelle Matason, Coordinator of Career Development Services at KPU, to introduce and welcome our terrific guests. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you to you, Julia, our tireless director of the Career Development Center, for that wonderful welcome and kicking off our 15th annual Career Day Career Fair. Well, when I woke up this morning and saw the amount of rain falling, I cannot lie. I was thankful that we were not at an in-person fair to set up lugging props around in the rain, posters that wouldn't stay up on the pillars and would fall into a soggy mess, helping employers with their paraphernalia and getting it in and wiping it down. So that was that, but I will miss the lunch and the famous candy bar. We've been working really hard over the last 10 months to secure an amazing platform of employers for this year's fair, and I truly believe that we have succeeded, if not exceeded. The main part of any career fair is to bring employers and students together, and we have been able to keep that core value in place with the help of our job board platform, and we are truly grateful. It also gives us the advantage of being able to bring you some stellar speakers, and this morning I have the extreme pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Michael Chang, who's an alumnus of KPU, graduating class 2015. Michael has leveraged his finance and performance management expertise to bring clarity on business decisions for owners, executive, and management teams across various sectors. In the span of 5 years, Michael has served as a consultant to Liquid Home Ownership and Maria, I hope I got that right, Maria, Jeannie, and O'Connell LLP, acted as the controller of Almond Group Companies Limited and assistant controller of Venture Fusion Investment Group, and was the founder owner of a professional services company. Michael is currently a senior associate at Grant Thornton's advisory practice in Vancouver, BC. In his role, he has gained a broad exposure to advisory service offerings such as insolvency, consulting, forensics, and valuations. Michael is committed to help his local community thrive through his role as a director of KPU Alumni Association, Surrey Cares Community Foundation, and CPABC SLND chapter. He was recognized by Cloverdale Langley MP Tamara Jensen for his community contributions in 2020. Michael is also a big advocate of community building, mentorship, and storytelling, as you will see today, which led him to launch 26xmillennials.com, a social project with a singular vision to inspire, to connect, and to build one global community by sharing one new idea or multiple ideas with millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and all future generations. Please give a warm welcome to Michael and prepare to be wowed as he shares with you success stories of KPU alumni. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome there. And it's so great to be with each of you today, and very nice to see some familiar faces in the crowd. A virtual career fair is not something that any of us would have imagined or planned in 2021. So let's all give KPU Career Development Services a big round of applause on executing on such a great event. I also had a chance to connect with Chris Pereira, and he has some great experience over in Asia, so I'm sure he's going to have a great speech for each of you. Be sure to check out his video that talks about the watermelon and the frog, the Qinghua and the Xigua story, because if you have not, it is hilarious. My agenda is simple for you today. I want to inspire you to be resilient and thrive by sharing some practical ideas to conquer that big mountain we call a career, business, or whichever path you decide to embark upon. I'll also share with you 3 KPU success stories to both inspire and challenge you to do some great things. Let's start light and jump right into our first KPU success story before I share my own journey with you. This is Andrew. You likely have seen him on our KPU commercials as the symbol of inspiration, and he truly lives up to that motto. Andrew Code actually envisioned himself to be a mechanic early on in his childhood and went into the industry, but then realized that there was more that the world could offer him. So when he realized this, he wanted to go back to university, and because he didn't really focus on his studies in high school, he could only be accepted into KPU, thankfully, actually. So when he came to KPU, he focused on his studies, and he actually graduated as a valedictorian for his class when he graduated, and then went on to pursue the very challenging and coveted career path of becoming an investment banker. Today, Andrew works in London, UK at Houlihan Lokey, one of the top investment banks in the world, as well working in one of the top financial centers in the world. Andrew set the bar very, very high for himself and dedicated himself to pursue that path. And we congratulate Andrew for everything that he has done. What a very inspirational story this is. Raise your hands if you're feeling inspired. All right, well, hold on tight to your seat because we have other stories for you to inspire. Let me take you back to a childhood story that I'm sure each of you have heard. It's the tortoise and the hare. And if you have not heard this story, then let me tell you the shortened version of it. And stick with me because I am going somewhere with this story. So a hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being slow. Do you ever get anywhere, he asked with a mocking laugh. Yes, replied the tortoise, and I will get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it. How many of you think the hare won this race? Please raise your hands. Now, raise your hands if you think the tortoise won. Well, the tortoise actually did win the race, and the moral of this story is that the race is not always won by the fastest or the most skilled. Another way to describe the underlying metaphor is that when talent doesn't hustle, then hustle beats talent. I'm going to repeat that again. When talent doesn't hustle, then hustle beats talent. The hare got lazy and decided to take a break and sleep because he was ahead of the tortoise. What he did not know was that the tortoise was determined and slowly but steadily kept working towards the finish line. And eventually this slow tortoise beat the incredibly fast hare. So I related much of this story to myself as being the tortoise early on in my career path. For those who might feel this way right now in this moment today on KPU Careers Day because of the pandemic or how you did in your last class or last semester, let me be the first to tell you that everything's going to work out and it's okay. You're just at the beginning of this long marathon, once again, that we call a career or business and whichever path you decide to go down. For those who are on the right track and think you are the hare, well, keep on pacing, be humble, and don't slow down. To paint the full picture, I need to go a little bit back in my own story and journey to tell you why I felt like the tortoise and how I found my way to Grant Thornton's national consulting practice. I was born in Taichung, Taiwan. It's a place full of energy, warm weather, and absolutely amazing food. And then one day, my parents decided to immigrate to Cloverdale, British Columbia. As you can see from these two photos, it was a big cultural shock. We left this warm and sometimes too humid place to come to a freezing, cold, and rainy place where people apparently ride horses all the time. I thought there was a huge mistake. Why do we leave this beautiful island to come to Canada where I'm freezing now? I'm absolutely kidding. Cloverdale is a hidden treasure, and I'm so fortunate to have grown up here. So when I came to Canada, I couldn't even speak English, did not know a single soul out here, and encountered adversity growing up. All this taught me to be resilient and to be persistent. We didn't have much growing up, so whenever we had to do those fundraising functions during elementary, like selling the coupon books or those chocolates, I'd be the first kid knocking on every door in my neighborhood. And this is where my interest in business really began, when I learned how to sell. I also felt like there was this big rush to move forward because both my brothers went to UBC and were very ambitious, but I wasn't certain on what I wanted to do. I was actually accepted to UBC also, but decided to study here at KPU, and I'll tell you later on why that was in my story. I've never shared any of these personal facts about myself with anyone, but they're a big part of my own journey, so hopefully that provides you with some context of where I began, basically from nothing. I did know that a career in business would be interesting and thought that accounting would be my path to a career in business. This open-ended goal would eventually lead me down a windy road that I've called my career to date. How funny is this photo here? If every business meeting was actually like this, I'm sure every single person on this call right now would get into business. So I always knew that accounting wasn't exactly the right path for me that I wanted to go down, but rather it was a very valuable skill to gain. I learned this early on that accounting is the backbone of every business. If you want to understand how our organization performed, you'll review the financials. If you want to make a decision about a purchase or a sale or change in operations, you generally want to perform some financial calculations. If you want to predict how the organization will perform in the future, you will also forecast the financials. All these thoughts piqued my interest early on, but as I began to lose interest because of the accounting theory, and while most of my peers were dead set on public practice careers or a career in accounting, here I was not sure about the program I wanted to study and was actually planning on switching out. And by the way, I want to just ensure Dean Howes and Lindsay Clayton that you guys have superb professors here at KPU, and I absolutely learned a ton. And back to my own story. So at the time, I was going to switch out of the accounting program, and I approached the chair of the accounting faculty at the time, Carol Stewart, and she was kind enough to give me some advice, and effectively, I decided to go down the accounting track again. So I went down the accounting path, much like the Tortoise, who was trekking slow while all his peers were gunning for the finish line. And I took the same courses as them. I went to CPA Recruit with them, went to industry networking events with them, and I even joined the KPU Accounting Club. I pretty much did everything that one would to pursue that career in accounting, despite the fact that I wasn't quite sure it was the path for me yet. And as we near graduation, most of my peers already secured positions with the big four accounting firms, National 7, and I didn't really have any meaningful accounting experience this time still, but this was all about to change. It was one afternoon at the Grassroots on Surrey campus. I still remember sitting there waiting for my next class to start when a colleague of mine called about a bookkeeper opportunity with an agribusiness. I recall actually being slightly hesitant because it was a fairly junior and purely accounting focused role, but at the same time, I knew that I really had to give this a shot to truly know that accounting was not for me. And very early on, I demonstrated to the owner that I knew what I was doing from an accounting perspective. I was thinking outside the box. I was applying my theoretical knowledge and began adding a ton of value to his business by creating profitability reports, implementing project accounting, and also developed working papers that would be meaningful to external accountants. I know for the accountants in the crowd, that means nothing to you, but here's kind of the takeaway. For anyone who's kind of going into their first job or into a junior role, I made sure that I was always thinking outside the box, looking to add value to the organization or business. And this can be very risky, especially at a junior level, but I can guarantee you by practicing this skill early on, then this will be something that you get better at as you progress in your career, especially as a more senior role like a manager or a senior manager. So when the 1 year mark came around, I sat down with the owner and we realized that what I wanted to do in my career was pursue more so the professional path. And that's when I decided to try something totally different and launch my own bookkeeping business. I'll tell you, it was very tough, but I learned a ton. I remember being at one of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade's networking events when I was in their Leaders of Tomorrow program, and I asked one of the experienced professionals at this event for advice because I just started my own business. And they said to me, why would someone choose to use you for their services instead of an experienced professional? I was pretty taken back by this, but it's business, you know, a dog eat dog world, so they say. But the first lesson that I took away of many is that you really have to have thick skin and be fearless about not giving up. I could have taken the professional's advice to heart and stopped right there. But I decided to actually use that as my fuel motivation to continue down my path. I was able to acquire a couple clients by bringing a different lens that I believe most bookkeepers weren't at the time, which is that I would actually go above and beyond, once again, to help the business owners make sense of their financial information. This value proposition is simple, but it went beyond the traditional role of providing financial information to the owners. So the second lesson that I learned is that you need to be creative about how to differentiate yourself, especially when the odds are against you. So as time went on, I started to get pretty burnt out. I was a 20-something-year-old working his day job, trying to run this bookkeeping company off the side of my desk, and still attending various networking events to try and get new clients. Layer on top of all this, I was managing a youth leadership program for Surrey Cares Community Foundation, which I'm actually on the board of today. And our executive director, Christine, is here today, so be sure to say hi to her. And the third lesson that I learned was that you really need to have the right processes or marketing strategies in place, or you'll be plugging the holes, so to speak, once you're starting to operate. So find a co-founder if you think you need to, but only if you absolutely need to. And at this point in my career, this is when I decided to go back to school again and get my Chartered Professional Accountant designation. So let's pause here for a second and talk about our second KPU alumni success story. So our current chancellor is a great example of another successful alumni. Kim Baird described herself as a reluctant student, unsure of her future, and credits much of her time at KPU as a process that awakened her social consciousness and provided her with the core skills for critical thinking. This led to a career where she not only served as elected chief for your community for 13 years, but also negotiated and implemented a modern treaty for her community, the Tsawwassen First Nation. This has enabled economic development at massive scale, benefiting Tsawwassen and the region. Her leadership has led to many accolades, including the Order of British Columbia and Order of Canada. And since then, she's focused her consulting career on advancing reconciliation for First Nations. In her words, she never imagined when she started at KPU she would end up being the chancellor for an institution that has helped her so much in her journey. And if you have not already, definitely connect with Kim. I've spoken with her many a time. She's always happy to speak with you as students. So here I was, a couple years out of university, started my own business and decided to go back to school. At this point, I've actually lost track of what most of my peers were up to these days, but staying along the line of the Tortoise and the Herrera story, I definitely was behind education, as most of my peers who decided to pursue their CPAs right out of university likely finished by now. And I definitely took a step back financially. But despite all of this, I knew gaining my Chartered Professional Accounting designation would line up with my long-term business goals. So I focused on the experience and education instead, and this is what I would do for the next 3 years. And through the next 3 years, I would begin paving my path to my current role as a senior associate in Grant Thornton's national consulting practice, where we deliver operational consulting, digital transformation, and revenue optimization services to both public and private sector organizations. In my current role, I've been exposed to process improvement, financial modeling, and data analytics projects. All of these projects that I mentioned leverage the valuable industry experience that I gained prior to joining GT Consulting. And honestly, I probably wouldn't have gotten this job if I did not go down the exact same path that I did. So now that I'm looking back, would I have ever imagined I would be where I am today, despite where I was sitting that day at grassroots? Remember that, that sunny day where all my peers were still gunning for the finish line. I was sitting there unsure. Absolutely not. So I encourage each of you just to reflect now and know that it's okay. The metaphorical race, by the way, is still on. I continue to tread slowly and soak in the sun as I journey down this path. At this stage, the hare is definitely in sight and the tortoise is lurking up fast. It has been a very windy road, to say the least, and one that I didn't travel alone. Over the past decade, I have probably had over 500 coffees, meetings, or lunches with people just to learn about what they do and ask for advice. I actually still do this today because I have a very curious mind, and I just personally like to meet people and hear their stories. I've met so many great mentors who have been a compass for me when I was venturing down this solo journey on my own. In particular, I'd like to thank Tim Holloway, Renato Cavalier, Blake Elliott, and Ryan Lane, and many others who helped me along this journey. These are people that I've met at networking events, at KPU, and through my workplaces. And I've also been so thankful to find mentors in my current firm today. So it's important to seek out mentors along your own personal career journey because you can't do it on your own. And these mentors can be your colleagues, families, or friends. It doesn't have to be a complicated process. So what are some practical takeaways for you up to this point? I think there are many depending on the path that you choose. If you want to be an entrepreneur, there are so many tools out there for you to leverage. You can do up a lean canvas, set up some basic processes, and go sell your product or service. If you want to pursue a more traditional career, then be intentional about it and know that it is a marathon. And remember the persistence of that tortoise each time you hit a bump in the road. Above all, don't be afraid to take risks and follow your heart. If you follow your passion beyond all things, then you will find a meaningful career and everything else will fall into place. For me, my passion lies in the community and youth engagement. So this is where I focus a lot of my time today. I've been thankful to find a mentor who's actually guiding me down this path. Mike Bowes, whose family was a pioneer here in Cloverdale, British Columbia, has tremendous experience as a community leader and spent most of his life advocating for agriculture in his community. And this is why I decided to launch 26X Millennials, a social project with a singular vision to build a community of millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and all future generations. We will share with you a collection of 26 millennial stories through video and podcasts. These stories will take you through their journey from the beginning to where they are today. We'll get some great advice for you and hear about some of the challenges that they face along their path to help you in your journey. We'll speak to people like Swish Goswami, a 23-year-old CEO who just raised a Series A round of $2.3 million. We'll also speak with Richard Lote, SFU alumni who started Fivefold for Foods and now currently works as a director of operations for a marketing agency out in Southeast Asia. So be sure to check us out at 26xmillennials.com. We hope that you will join us on this journey and contribute to each episode by sending in your questions that we have for our guests. And finally, if you have not already, definitely go follow KPU Career Development Center on all their social media. I've highlighted some of their key services that they offer here, and connect with the team if you haven't. And as well, I want to highlight some of the services that KPU Alumni Association has to offer you when you graduate. And be sure to check it out. We have a great platform that may be really relevant for you today, which is a 10,000 Coffees platform as well as alumni chapters. So everyone, I've shared with you a few KPU alumni success stories and some practical ways to be resilient in your careers. Now it's your time to shine. Go out into the world and show everyone who the tireless runners are because it's in your DNA as a KPUer. Go out into the world and create the difference you want to see because the technology is all there. Go out into the world and pursue your dreams relentlessly until you succeed because we believe in you. And before I close today, I'm sure there's somewhere here, there's a hashtag. Please tweet or use this hashtag on your social media and just share one thing or one story from today, and we would love to kind of connect with you. And with that, I will share with you our final KPU alumni success story. So Mohammed, at a young age, saw how hard his father worked in the grueling Canadian winter summers and sun to put food on the table for his family. And this is when he made the conscious decision that he would actually use his brain for a living instead. And Mohammed came to KPU because a lot of his friends did, and he felt right at home, especially after meeting Dave Sale, who has been a big influence in his career. And for those that do know Dave from the county department, this is an influential person both at KPU as well as in the community. So Mohammed would run into Dave time and time again after Mohammed graduated, because Mohammed actually worked at the Save on Foods that Dave would visit time and time again. So and one day, Dave actually encouraged Mohammed to continue down his path in accounting. So Mohammed actually did focus down that career track despite the opportunity not being there right out of university. And a lucky opportunity came up at Save on Foods where he was working to actually move into their finance department. And Mohammed did very well and decided that he actually wanted to pursue the CFO path. And despite not knowing whether or not he would make it as a CFO, he actually pursued it relentlessly and put a lot of effort in, and eventually became the CFO of YISC in his early 30s. So thank you so much, each of you, for your time today, and it's been great to come back here again.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your stories and the stories of our alumni. The one thing that we miss right now is the applause, so I applaud you. We do have some time for some questions, and I know that stories like this help to alleviate fears from students. And I'm wondering if there's anybody that has any questions for Michael, if you wanted to type them in the chat. He would love to answer and spend some time on those right now. So just give it a couple minutes while people are typing. I love the stories that you shared, and especially including Kim, our new chancellor, in there. That's been quite a pathway that she's walked. And congratulations on winning for your award last year for your involvement. I hadn't got a chance to say the congratulations yet.
Thank you, Michelle.
Well, if we don't have any questions at this point, if you wanted to send any questions for Michael directly to Michael, you can reach out and find him on LinkedIn and connect with him there. I'm sure that he would love to chat with you and give you some advice moving forward. Again, Michael, it's been fantastic having you here, and we really appreciate you spending the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sorry, Michelle, it looks like the questions are just coming in right now. If Michael, if you still have a few more minutes to at least answer some, that would be great. Michelle, I'm passing out to you.
Oh, absolutely, thank you. Okay, this is great. So for students who are unsure of what to do after graduating, what would your advice be for them?
So I would say this is a challenging question for me to answer specifically, simply because I think everyone's path is different, and there's various influences that may impact your decision. But seeing as I went down kind of more so the consulting entrepreneur path, and then also decided to pursue a traditional career, I think in my experience, definitely get some experience in the area that you're interested in, because you never know where that will lead you. But once again, just kind of going back to some of the insights that I had in my speech, which is more geared towards following your passions at the end of the day, you can't go wrong there. So if you're unsure about what you want to do, definitely find something that's interesting to you, and not pursue something because your friends are, or your parents are guiding you down that path.
Excellent, thank you. We do have another question. Right now, I am in India and it's my second semester in KPU. So is it really worthful to attend Virtual Career Day 2021 because I do not have any work experience also?
Yeah, so I would definitely say so. In terms of networking or building relationships or connections, I think, you know, this is a great platform for you to do that. KPU Career Development Services has done a great job to, you know, leverage the tools available to still deliver and execute on this great event. So all to say, I think it's definitely meaningful, especially if you want to pursue a career here in Canada, especially in British Columbia, because that's where a lot of our alumni are. Not to say that we don't have alumni around the world. So, you know, definitely valuable. And I would say to get the most out of it, make as many connections as you can and definitely follow up with them after the fact.
Excellent. We have time for a couple more questions. Was there a point where you did not want to go ahead with the path that you struck through?
I kind of chuckle there because you may have kind of gotten that from my story, and certainly there were probably a couple moments, I think, in my career path where I actually did not think accounting was for me. But as I highlighted in my speech there, accounting is a very practical and valuable skill. And I knew that was important for kind of my open-ended goal of a career in business. So, you know, there was definitely a couple of moments where there was bumps in the road per se, but I knew at the end of the day it would lead me down to where I am today.
Excellent, thank you, thank you. One last question, and again, I encourage you to reach out to Michael on LinkedIn or and pose your questions to him. So our last question for today is, when you first entered the workplace, what was the biggest challenge you faced as a new grad?
I think the biggest challenge for me, and this is going to be different for everyone, you know, I already had some years of working experience under my belt in a professional environment, but the biggest thing was being able to apply the technical theory to the workplace. So with accounting, once again, it's fairly technical and rigid, and not have that experience before. You know, I definitely, you know, for my first real accounting job, I definitely was a bit nervous, but very quickly I knew right away kind of where I sat and the value that I brought. So for anyone out there that might be unsure kind of what it is that you can bring to the business, once again, just make sure that you brush up on your technical skills and ask people for their thoughts or advice before kind of heading on your first day there.
Fantastic, thank you. And I want to impart to you too, we do have lots of thank yous in our questions and answer feed to you, Michael, for spending your time and sharing your insight. It's been very well received, and lots of thank yous in there as well. Okay, thank you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about our title sponsor. So our title sponsor for Career Day this year is Canadian Ecosystem Institute, and we have the distinct pleasure of having Chris Pereira, the President and CEO, with us again to share his keen insight into the future of technology and business. Chris Pereira is an experienced strategy and communications professional from Canada with 15 years of experience in China. He's fully bilingual in Mandarin and English. He has built his career upon a constructive bridge between different people, interests, and cultures. He has worked with hundreds of companies and dozens of Fortune 500 enterprises. Chris was recently featured by Vancouver City News, Omni News, Richmond News for his sponsorship of the translation of the BC First Nations history book into Mandarin, a project led by Professor Keith Carlson at the University of the Fraser Valley. Chris is also the planner and project manager for the documentary Connect the North, which enlightened young Inuit women whose lives and careers were improved after high-speed internet was brought to the far north. As a featured speaker at the International Economic Forum of the Americas, Chris recently represented his company as a panelist during a conversation about accelerating the global digital economy and as an opening speaker for a session on inclusion and diversity in the IEFA's Conférence de Montréal. Chris has spoken at over 30 universities and colleges across Canada, sharing insights about the future of technology and business, networking, and career. With his team at Canadian Ecosystem Institute, Chris is working to make Richmond, BC a role model for successful multiculturalism in Canada, helping to ensure companies and people are able to integrate smoothly into the market in Canada and overseas. Please give a warm KPU welcome to Chris Pereira.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's very kind of you to welcome me here, and it's a great pleasure to support this event. And you mentioned 30 universities and colleges. I can tell you without exception, and I think KPU is the most positive and my favorite place to be because it's right down the street from where we work. So appreciate you having me here. So I'm just going to share my screen and I'll get started. Just got a very brief presentation for you all here, and thank you for taking the time. I was listening during Michael's presentation, and I think you're very lucky to have him as an alumni to share his background also, and really wanted to emphasize again that he said to be fearless, and I think that's a great piece of advice in this, especially this year after a full year of lockdown. So today I'm going to speak for about 10 minutes to share some, hopefully it's useful advice that you can use right after my presentation. And it's specifically about career and where we're going in the future with technology. So as Michelle mentioned, my career is between Canada and China for about 15 years. I lived and studied in mainland China and Hong Kong. And right now my company does business between Canada and China. We help tech companies, especially with their communication, their content, and business development. So some of this is based on our own experience in business. So the question is, will you be automated in the future, right? And I think it's a big question for you at this stage. You're here at the career day looking for a job, looking for a career. And if you make, in my mind, thinking back to that time, I was thinking too, like if I make the wrong decision, maybe in 5 years, my job is gone, right? So it's probably not a good time to think about being a taxi driver, for example, because the self-driving cars down the road, if you're thinking as a young person in 30 or 40 years, do we still have people driving cars? It's a question mark in my mind. So that's just one example, and you could say the same thing about some parts of legal work, and maybe we can talk to Michael more about the accounting side. I'm sure there's some aspects of accounting also that could be facing some automation. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. As Michelle mentioned, basically what she just read out was this page. So my name is Chris Pereira, and my CEO. I'm the CEO of Canadian Ecosystem Institute, and we are a bridge between Canada and China on the business side. So thank you for having me. And basically what we're doing in the market specifically is helping Canadian companies do business in China and helping Chinese-Canadian companies in Canada. That includes, for example, in Richmond, there's obviously a big Chinese population here, and there's many people who are second language speakers who have great ideas or technology, and we help them with their English localization and to move beyond just the Chinese community. So really truly making Richmond a multicultural place. So this is just a sort of a visual representation of what we do. Now to jump into what I wanted to share with you today, when we think about what will the future hold in terms of technology, we often have an idea that there's many things like these cyborgs coming our way, right? 5, 10 years, 15 years in the future. This is what many people think the future is going to look like. It can be scary, like do we even need humans in the future? And I'm fairly confident to tell you today that the future is not going to look like this cyborg in outer space. It's actually going to look more like this cow. And why do I say this? There's actually over 1 billion cows on the internet as we speak today. They're not watching YouTube, of course, but they are having their vital signs monitored, their health checked in real time using the Internet of Things, the IoT. So this is one example where over 1 billion cows are connected to a system where they're being monitored for disease, for abnormalities, and increasing their productivity to make them healthier and the food healthier that they create. And I think that's where the next 5 or 10 years of automation is really going to be seen, is through things like the IoT, where things, quote unquote, like your glasses, your cell phones, your cars, your pets will be connected to the internet and will start to collect data. And once that data is collected, the automation side or the artificial intelligence side comes in when you have that big array of data. It's one thing to have a big pile of documents on your computer, as we all know. It's another thing to have them well organized and know how to use them, right? So I'm sure we all have the experience of having 10,000 pictures in a file folder, all of them like 55333, 55334. You have no idea what they are, right? You have to click one by one. So AI can actually, just as an example, that would be a great application for AI to say, I'd like to arrange all the pictures that have a swing set, or I'd like all the outside pictures in one folder, or I'd like all the pictures with my face in one folder. So this sort of, once you have that data, using artificial intelligence to use the data efficiently is really where the automation is going to come in the future. So what does that mean when we're really looking at like in reality, how is it going to change our lives? And I think one important part of where we're going is that the idea of a digital native customer in the future, or being a digital native. What does a digital native mean? Well, I'm personally not a digital native. I was born before the internet, believe it or not. So it makes me sound very old. But so anyone who is born and grew up using the internet is a digital native, using digital technology. So those generations that are after the internet are generally more tech savvy. They're using pads from when they're 4 or 5 years old onwards. They know how to use technology, and they expect it to be part of their lives. Whereas people before that generation, I'm just on the cusp, thankfully, but before that generation, there's less savviness, and it's less likely that they'll adapt quickly. So if you think of this trend ongoing in the future, say 20, 30 years down the road, if you're thinking in your career path, a lot of the things that are sort of half and half right now, like you see parking meters in Vancouver, for example. There's still ways you can use coins to put them into the parking meters, right? Whereas you also have the pay by, I can't remember what it's called, but pay by phone parking or something. It's all digital. You don't actually need coins. You don't even need a credit card. You can just use a website and the code for your parking to pay for parking. So right now, I think it's an interesting time in history where we have the old world with the coins and cash, and we have the new world with your cell phone where you scan a QR code to pay. So I think it's interesting just to recognize where we are in history, because it's not going to last forever. I think in the next several decades, we'll see the sort of cash and coin world sort of fade away, and we'll move more and more into the digital. So what that means for things like legal services, accounting, what I do, content, and all this. Well, there's a big group of customers still that prefer to do things offline, and there's a growing group that is wanting to do things online. So what that means for your specific industry, I think it's interesting to think about yourself and where the trends are going. So in other words, don't look at the situation right now, think of the trend in the next 5 or 10 years where things are becoming more digital. And the other part of this is just one example of an industry that my company is relatively deeply involved in, is robotics. Many of our customers are, for example, Chinese companies wanting to bring a robot solution to North America. So this is something like in a factory, a little machine that will go to the warehouse, pick up a pallet of products and bring it to the production line, all automatic, and maybe even give it to another robot on the production line. So this is just one example in factories. There's a term that's used sometimes now called dark factories. In other words, there are factories where no humans are needed, and therefore you don't need lights, you don't need air conditioning, you don't need heat. They're all just operating in the dark, making things. So it's just another example of automation, and I think this is a bigger question mark, like where if you're into automation and manufacturing, for example, will you have a job in the future? And I'm going to leave that question mark there for a few minutes, but just to say that robotics and automation, I think it's something we need to recognize is happening. And when things are repeatable, if you're doing a job that can be done over and over without thinking, that's very likely to be automated in the future. And I think we're all in university to avoid those jobs anyway. So my first job out of university was actually on a production line in a company called Broombrae Farms, which is the largest egg producer in Canada. And my first job was to take boxes from this side and put them onto a conveyor belt all day. And if you do that for 10 hours, you realize that no one in the entire world should do this job. It needs to be automated because you finish it's a job, right? But you finish it at the end of the day and your brain doesn't work right, you're tired, and you want to improve, but you just want to watch TV at the end of the day because you're so tired. So my personal opinion is those jobs, if they're automated, it's good for our society because it will encourage people to improve maybe their education, go back to school, and not do those jobs. So and there's a big debate to be had about that. But all that to say, in the robotics, I think anything that is repeatable. So even if you have data input, for example, and Michael talked a lot about accounting. If you have information coming from one person that you need to put it into an Excel file in order to give it to another person, that sort of process is very repeatable and can be automated. So if you think of things that you want to do in the future, it's much better if you're thinking of things that maybe interacting with people, because people are not predictable. I could have a conversation every day with Michelle, and she will have a different response to me each time, right? It's not always the same conversation, so it's not possible for the machine to really deal with the human responses in many ways. If anyone's ever had an experience trying to tell your phone company's automated machine like what would you like, those machines never understand me. So I don't think maybe it's just my mistakes. So anyway, so robotic automation is doing repeatable tasks over and over. So when we think about where automation is going, I'd like to give three tangible things that I think it can give you sort of a leg up when you're looking at the future of your career. And the first one here, it says use technology to enhance human connection. So an example I like to use is when I go to Starbucks. You know that the whole process of going to a coffee shop is completely obsolete if you wanted to automate it today, right? Because at home we have a button we can press and make a cup of coffee with no human interaction at all, right? You could even outside in a coffee machine, you could have an automated shop where you just press a button, order a coffee, it gets poured and you take the cup. So why do we have these coffee shops with like 5 humans running around behind the counter still? I think it's an interesting question to ask, right? Because personally, I like to see that human and say, hey, I'd like my request is very simple. I'd like a black coffee. But if you want to have a very complicated request, you can have a chat with them. So I think the human connection shouldn't be overlooked. So if you ask me, will your job be automated in the future? My question back to you would be, does your job involve interaction with humans? And if it does, at some level, I think that you can be assured that at some level it will not be automated. And you can augment your value by having better interpersonal skills in the future. So I would say that human interaction, we're all more connected than ever with our cell phones. Your boss can call you 24/7 with your cell phone. It's still important to build the human interaction, even though you can work on your computer all day from home these days. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is sort of related in terms of investing in your human relationships. And Michael mentioned, sort of dealt with a question from you guys a bit earlier. The gentleman was from India and he asked, is it worth attending a career day online? And my suggestion, my response would be the same, that whether it's this career day or any networking event, I think you really need to trust the process of attending these events. And it's sort of like when you invest some money, you're not going to make $1 million the next day. But each day is a couple pennies more into your bank account. And as you meet more people, today you're going to see a few people on the screen. If you go onto LinkedIn and add them afterwards, you do that every day at the events, eventually you're going to know a lot of people, and you'll realize, hey, I know more people than most of the people around me because every day I'm adding 1 or 2 people on LinkedIn. So really trust the process for your networking, and it's going to be very discouraging at first because you'll spend 3 hours today at this career event and maybe you'll add a couple people, you'll get some advice, and it's going to be great. But in the longer term, this is an investment in your relationships. And anyone you see speaking here, I strongly suggest you look them up on LinkedIn and say hello, and maybe even ask for a separate coffee. And you're welcome to do that for me also. You can reach out. So the last takeaway to answer the question of this presentation is no, not everything will be automated. And I strongly suggest you double down on your strengths. So if you like to do like sort of human interaction, double down on your strength of enjoying talking to people. If you enjoy doing the tech side, or whatever you enjoy doing, don't try to be a jack of all trades and do everything well. I strongly suggest you focus on what you do well. And if you have a hobby of something else, you can do that also. Just as an example, I would love to play the guitar and make money playing the guitar, but no one will ever pay me for my guitar playing ever in my whole life. So if I invest half my week into learning guitar, it's sort of, yes, I might get better, but I'm not going to compete with people who do that for a living, you know. So double down on your strengths. So I'm about to wrap up here. So I talked a bit about some of my predictions, or my company's predictions for the future, and I guess part of those are based on pain points in today's society, and you can see some of these today. Predictions are a funny thing. If anyone says they know the future, you definitely don't believe them, including me. And just take this information with a grain of salt and analyze it based on your own plans. So. And with that, I'd like to give you one more piece of advice, and it's similar to what Michael said. I'm glad he mentioned it. He said, be fearless, and I would say it a different way. I would say be bold, especially this year, whether you're in India or China or Canada right now. I think this, you know, in 10 or 20 years, people will ask you, hey, what were you doing during the pandemic? And you say, well, I was slugging through my university degree. It was really tough. I was stuck in India. I was stuck in China. I was in Canada, but really tough to learn and get through things. But it's going to be a good story one day. And I think down the road, I'd love to grab a coffee with you guys, and just be bold when you make your decisions in the next year or two. Don't choose the first job that comes up because you're worried about it. Choose the job that excites you. And I think Michael mentioned that too, to follow your heart and follow your interests, because your job isn't going to go away in a week or two. So you better like it, whatever you're doing. So with that, I mentioned like encouraging you guys to reach out on LinkedIn. I would just give, this is on the left, that QR code is my LinkedIn. In the middle, that's my WeChat QR code, and of course Twitter is on the right. And we are hiring for business development, both in English and Chinese. So if you are looking for a job, feel free to reach out for me on that, either on LinkedIn or WeChat. And just one final piece of advice for networking that I think is very valuable for anyone in Kwantlen University is, so LinkedIn has a great function that allows you to give recommendations for other people. So I believe there's close to 100 people on this call right now. And I'm sure in your classes, you know, upwards several dozen people, if not 50, 100 people in your class. So if you work together in the next week during this career today and next week during this career week, you could potentially have 50 or 100 recommendations on your LinkedIn if you all work together and give each other recommendations. And that's more recommendations than I have. So work together. It's in a tough year, and if you have the more allies you have, the better for your networking. So I wish you guys all the best, and I'm very proud that our company could support this. So good luck in your future careers.
Wow, Chris, thank you ever so much. Those are some amazing and crazy insights into the future, what could possibly be. My crystal ball is broken, so I'm not going to make any money there. So many things. I'm writing notes as we're going through, and one of them is to introduce you to our Mechatronics program people as well. So note to self. Again, thank you. If you have any questions for Chris, I'm looking at the time here. I encourage you to please head into the Career Day link and sign up to speak with him one-on-one and learn some more amazing things that he has to share. I, for one, am going to be booking a coffee with you. So, wow, what an amazing morning that we've had so far, listening to these two amazing speakers. I don't know about you, but I'm really revved up and ready to network with some fantastic employers. So just a reminder to head to the help desk if you have any questions navigating the system. But by the clock on the wall, and without further ado, I would like to proclaim our 15th annual Career Day officially open. Please click on the link in the chat to take you virtually inside and have a great day.
Perfect. Would this be a good opportunity to end the live completely? Perfect.
Yeah, I think the live is complete. Everyone, I posted the Career Connection link, and so for everyone who's attending the event, just click that link and you'll be prompted to log in using your student or alumni ID and your password, and you should be able to get into the virtual career fair. Thanks, everyone.